I get going today, a few corrections to a video we did earlier in the week. First, I incorrectly stated in our video on production that Tesla had hit a valuation of $1,200 when it was nearly $1,100 at the time of filming. I also said in an earlier version of the video that it acquired the company responsible for producing the massive megacastings for Model Y. That was wrong, and I'm sorry for the confusion. I also suffered from a spoonerism and said Hyundai Kona 5 instead of Hyundai Ioniq 5, and that one slipped through our script revision. We will work harder. Sorry. Additionally, some of you noted that other companies use production lines before Ford, and you're right, there were some production lines before Henry Ford's Model T line, but it's generally accepted that the Model T production line is one which led to today's modern automated lines. To today's video. Earlier this week, Florida-based rental company Hertz signed a deal with Tesla to buy 100,000 Model 3 sedans to use in its rental fleet in both Europe and the US. That deal was also the motivator behind Tesla's share price soaring, giving the company a $1 trillion value for the first time in its history. And there has been, rightly, a lot of excitement online and Wall Street ever since. Today, we're going to look at this deal and explain why this is so significant for both Tesla and the EV world. And we're going to bring up some of the challenges that lay ahead, some of the business opportunities that can be taken advantage of, ask who might be negatively impacted by this, and look at what this means for the future of rental fleets. At first glance, the deal, which will see Tesla supply those cars to Hertz over the next 14 months, gave us some pretty big feels about the potential that we may soon be able to rent an electric car rather than a gasoline one every time we need wheels on a business trip away from home. Indeed, earlier this week, we started to see Hertz put Model 3s on its website for certain locations. For example, you can now reserve a Model 3 from the Orlando International Airport Hertz location from just under $130 per day with all fees included if you use the Pay Now functionality, which is just about $30 more than renting a small combustion sedan for the same period of time. And yes, I am going on the approximate total fees here, because I frankly hate how US rental companies list costs per day and then heap a whole load of extra stuff on top. I guess you probably do too. Which brings me to explaining why this is such a big deal. For Tesla, there's the obvious advantage of the sheer financial benefit of selling 100,000 cars at full sticker price. That's right, Hertz did not get a special discount. This means Tesla can look forward to some $4.2 billion of sales revenue from this order alone, which, if we take its last quarter gross automotive margin of 30.5% into consideration, means it could stand to make $1.28 billion profit clear. That is a lot of money, and it could certainly help Tesla continue to expand its production facilities, invest in new technology, or speed up future product development. But there are some other intangible benefits to Tesla. The first one is the benefit of exposing potential new customers to its vehicles. Tesla does offer touchless test drives, which are limited to about 30 minutes in length. And of course, if you know someone with a Tesla, you might be able to get a longer test drive that way. But renting a car you're interested in buying has long been a way to get some deeper, real-world experience without time limits or dealing with dealerships. Rental fleets are, after all, how Ford boosted the public's awareness of its Mustang all those years ago. And back when the Nissan Leaf was just starting sales in North America, several rental companies in the San Francisco Bay Area and other pro-EV regions began to stock Nissan Leafs in their fleets. People would rent one for a day to see how it fit their needs, even when they didn't actually need to make a road trip. And that gives a massive sales benefit to whichever company's cars are being borrowed. A customer who test drove a rental Model 3 doesn't put pressure on Tesla's own sales and service system. They can make the decision to buy or not buy in their own time, and if they then follow up with an order, they're usually coming from a place of greater knowledge. Next, we have existing Tesla customers whose vehicles are out of action because of an accident or service issue. While Tesla does try to keep a healthy service fleet, there simply aren't enough for every customer, which means there are some times when Tesla doesn't have a car to lend customers whose car is being serviced. Having a rental company nearby, which has Teslas in stock and is willing to rent them out, is a perfect way to ensure that EV owners don't have to go back to a gasoline car just because their own one is in the shop, be it a Tesla or an EV from another brand. Finally, in terms of Tesla's benefits, there's the income from rental customers using its Supercharger network. I'm assuming it's working out some kind of deal with Hertz to make sure that charging is included as part of the rental. But however the charging is paid for, Tesla will benefit from all those new rental customers using its Supercharger network, which is poised to expand 3x in the next 2 years. And they'll be filling up with all of those electrons. Which brings us to the benefits for the rental company, in this case, Hertz. It's a well-known fact that electric vehicles have lower overall service costs because there are fewer moving parts, fewer filters to change, and fewer lubricants to cycle. And yes, electric cars do have fluids that need changing, but the service interval, for example, for flushing out the single-speed reduction gearbox on most EVs, is far longer than the oil change interval of an internal combustion engine. This means for the rental operator that the service costs of keeping cars on the road is far lower. And with Tesla producing LFP battery Model 3s, which are known to have battery cell chemistries that are cheaper to produce and expected to have a longer lifespan, service costs are supposed to be even lower for LFP Model 3s than a non-LFP car. And I say expected because LFP batteries are still relatively new in the mainstream EV world. For a company like Hertz, which is fresh out of bankruptcy, this deal is the perfect way to try and set itself apart from the competition and to have a competitive edge. Tesla owners are loyal and will go to the company that has a car like theirs on their fleet when they're away from home. And frankly, EV owners are like that too. I would far rather rent a Tesla Model 3 from Hertz, even if it costs a little more, than rent a gas stinker from another rental company. Then there's the matter of going into congestion charging zones, as found in increasing numbers in major cities around the world. These zones require you to pay a surcharge to drive into them if you're not in a zero-emission vehicle. For rental car operators, this means another thing to track and charge customers for. But if you have a fleet of electric vehicles, well, there are no surcharges. It's a win-win. Expect fleets in major cities to get higher proportions of Teslas than ones outside of major cities. But where things really get exciting for the rental company is the ability to upsell customers before and during the rental experience, thanks to the way that Teslas are made. To explain that in detail, let's remind ourselves of something about rental cars. They're special. It's something that even Hollywood knows. From Rat Race through to Tomorrow Never Dies, rental cars are portrayed as being capable of more than your average daily driver. They can off-road, they can jump, and they can... well, okay, 007's BMW 7 Series was a little more capable than your average rental car. But the point is, rental cars get treated badly, really badly. They're driven hard and treated with contempt, and for that reason, most rental companies keep a generous number of entry-level cars on their fleet. They are perfunctory and lack a lot of the bells and whistles of the higher-end models that you would want to actually buy. And part of that, of course, is because it's usually cheaper to repair an entry-level model than it is to repair a higher-end one with more in-car equipment and smarts. And part of that is because it means rental companies can list their cars at low, low prices and then stiff you for all of those added extras that you might expect a car to have, like satellite navigation or a decent radio. Most automakers, like Toyota for example, even make special feature-limited versions of their cars specifically for corporate and rental fleets. You can't buy them as private individuals, and rental companies love them. Tesla, though, has confirmed that the Model 3 cars it will sell to Hertz will be just the same as the cars it sells to private customers. They won't be special knocked-down versions in terms of capabilities. But That doesn't mean Hertz won't want to take advantage of the various upsells that a fully connected car like the Model 3 could make possible. Not to mention tracking of the driver to make sure they're not jumping and off-roading the vehicle. Imagine, if you will, renting a Tesla Model 3 from Hertz in the future. You'll pay a super low price that's comparable to a similar gasoline vehicle. But perhaps Hertz will decide to make things like full self-driving, if and when it exists outside of beta, a pay-to-use feature. It might decide to make rental Teslas have a lower top speed or slower acceleration, giving drivers the option to unlock that extra performance or range for an additional fee. Or perhaps it will decide to charge you for improved real-time satellite navigation, give you a discount if you prepay for Supercharging, just as you can get a discount if you pay for fuel today, or charge you extra to watch movies while you're waiting to charge. To be clear, we don't know for sure if this will happen, but if you have ever tried to rent a car at an airport and been given a 10-minute spiel as you fight jet lag about activating GPS or getting XFM added to your package, you know that rental companies already know how to squeeze every last penny out of you when you choose to rent. And to clarify, I don't think all of this necessarily is a bad thing. I mean, if I can rent a Tesla Model 3 at a cost that's pretty much on par with a comparable gasoline model, even if it doesn't have all of the features that a privately owned Tesla might, I'm still going to do it because it's an electric car. I'd guess too that for many people opting to rent a Tesla, even if Hertz did decide to cash in and charge you for all of those extras, they'd still go ahead and get those extra options because they either already have a Tesla at home or because they want to experience authentic Tesla ownership for a day or two prior to making their own purchase decisions. Lower maintenance, the ability to upsell on features, and a fully operational, extremely easy to use rapid charging network all make the Model 3 a fantastic choice for Hertz. That said, we here at the channel are a little sad that Model Y isn't going to be included at the moment, as the Model 3 isn't as flexible for luggage carrying as the Y. In fact, neither is the S. Back in 2019, when the team travelled to the UK for Fully Charged Live and we borrowed a Model S, we discovered our massive equipment flight cases didn't fit as easily in the Tesla Model S as they did in my much smaller Bolt hatchback. But if this deal goes well, I do expect Model Y to get added to the fleet in the future, especially if Tesla transitions to LFP batteries in entry-level Model Ys. Because Tesla's already got a proven track record, I expect the cars on Hertz's fleet to last far longer before getting sold off. The drivetrain and the battery packs are good for hundreds of thousands of miles, and over-the-air updates can keep the cars up to date, functionally. Traditionally, rental cars have a much shorter life expectancy, often being auctioned off as soon as they've hit their bumper-to-bumper warranty, had their interiors dinged up enough by suitcases, or are a few years old. Those cars then go on to life in a more budget-oriented rental car fleet. You'd actually be surprised how often that happens, or they enter into private ownership for someone who ultimately thinks they've got a fantastic bargain. These Model 3s, when they come out of operation on Hertz's fleet, will be very much a great bargain, as long as they are kept maintained. Tesla has frankly ironed out most of its most egregious early Model 3 bugs and glitches, and build quality today is streets ahead of what it was in 2017. And of course, this piece of news is bound to get other cars from other manufacturers onto the EV fleets at Hertz too. I can see the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, Volkswagen ID4 and Ford Mustang Mach-E all getting added in short order, and pickups from Ford, GM and yes, the Cybertruck too would round out the fleet options really nicely. And in Europe, expect a whole range of subcompacts with plugs joining the fleets too. This is the start of something big. Just as Tesla wasn't the first automaker to make an EV, it's not the first EV brand to be made available to rental fleets. That honour actually goes to the EV1. But it's the first brand to make a massive impact on the EV sales market, just as it's about to be the first EV brand to make a massive impact on the EV rental market. Who's going to lose out? Turo, and other peer-to-peer rental services. Right now, if you want to get a Tesla and you're in town somewhere away from home, your only choice really is Turo and other peer-to-peer services. But the prices charged for Teslas, no one is going to want to pay through the nose to get a Tesla when they can go down to their local Hertz and get one for far less. But before we get too carried away about there soon being 100,000 Teslas on Hertz regular daily rental fleet, a piece of news dropped yesterday that does change the context slightly. Namely that of those 100,000 Model 3s, 1/2 have been earmarked for use by Uber drivers who wish to rent a Model 3 to use with the service. That said, Hertz does retain the option to increase its order to 150,000 cars over the next 3 years, so if there's enough demand, there may be even more Teslas joining the Hertz fleet. Prices will start out at $334 per week, excluding taxes and fees. And Uber drivers will need to have a 4.7-star driver rating and a minimum of 150 trips under their belt to be eligible for this rental program. Prices are expected to drop over time, and initially only Uber drivers in LA, San Francisco, San Diego and Washington DC will be able to take part. Although, again, that will change over the coming months as the program is expected to go nationwide. Uber gets to move its fleet towards its claimed goal of being fully zero tailpipe emission, and drivers, at least those who can afford the weekly lease, will benefit from lower overall running costs. However, based on analysis from how much Uber drivers realistically earn, a figure that can be as low as $11 per hour before expenses in most metropolitan areas, and even less in states with no minimum wage regulation, not everyone will be able to put down money on a Tesla. Even an Uber X driver earning a top dollar figure of approximately $590 per week on average before expenses would struggle to find room in their budget to fund a $300 weekly lease. Then again, if you are more cynical about rideshare services and how they treat their employees in all but name, I feel obliged to remind you that Tesla hopes to roll out its FSD across its fleet in the near future. And then Uber drivers will be surplus to requirements, and Uber will have a 50,000 strong fleet of self-driving Tesla Model 3s. And that would really make Uber some big bucks. There you have it. What do you make of our analysis? Are we right? Are we wrong? Let us know in the comments below, or take it to our Discord chat room. We'll make sure there's a link below. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and our other channel, Transport Evolved Take 2. And while you're at it, hit the notification bell as well. We might be making fewer videos these days, but you are going to want to know when a new one has just dropped. Thanks on behalf of the entire TE crew go to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month patrons. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons, Joseph Broucher, David Janakula, Andrew Martin, Guido Rahota, Brophy Wolf, Michael Goad, Tazla in the Gong, Sean Ueda, Gordon C, Regine Fellows, Anonymous Freak, Jim Burness, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Ricky Leon, Brian Newton, Laura Sanborn, Rory Litwin and Denny Hyde. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters, John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, Joe Brenzy, Chrissa Kentavart, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, Matthew Drobnick, Christopher Lee Jones, Paul Conway, Ellery Hennesley, and Ian. We are always welcoming of new patrons, so sign up at Patreon, send us a Ko-fi, or shove some Bitcoin our way. There are links below, and don't forget to check out our swag store. There's plenty of time to order before the holidays. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving!